Good morning, everybody. Parshat, I should say Parshot, right? Matot, Maasei. I hope you have a good Balkore, a little bit longer than usual. That's good, more Torah, more psukim to hear. So, morning, good morning. Please come in, have a seat. Okay. So last week I used two sources that I'm going to repeat again this week. Okay, not what I said, but I'm using the same sources. It happens sometimes. You get involved in someone's Torah and you just don't let go. So the first piece was from Rav Chaim Shmulevitz, the great, late great Rosh Yeshiva of the Mir Yeshiva. And as I mentioned last week, for those who were not here, just repeated that somebody came out with a new sefer last year, which I just picked up when I was in New York a couple of weeks ago. And he took the Shmuzim of Reb Chaim and he divided them up parsha by parsha with so he divided them up parsha by parsha, little pieces from each parsha. So the first piece that we're going to do is from there, and let's see but there's going to be a theme here, and it's in a certain sense it's a theme of the parsha, which we'll see from a number. The parsha starts out with nedarim, with vows, goes on to a number of other things, the war with Midian, but there's going to be a bit of a theme here. So let's see what Reb Chaim says. We have the Ari Miklat in the parsha, right? There are 6 cities of refuge if someone kills somebody b'shogeg, right, inadvertently. So if he can escape to the 6 cities of refuge and spare his own life, because the person who's chasing him to kill him, the relative who wants to kill him, won't reach him, right? Incidentally, when Moshe Rabbeinu was commanded to start the Ari Miklat, there were going to be 3 in Eretz Yisrael and 3 across in the other side, Be'ever Yarden, right? Moshe immediately went to build them, right? He was commanded to build them. In the Torah, he has to do the mitzvah, and Rashi points out there, mitzvah bo liyadcha al tachmitzena. I'm just paraphrasing Rashi's comment, but you start to do the mitzvah right away. So the question over there is, what mitzvah? The din of Ari Miklat did not come into play until we were in Eretz Yisrael, right? So what does it mean that Moshe fulfilled the mitzvah of building the Ari Miklat? Even before, when Bnei Yisrael were not ready to go into the Midbar, and all the years, the 14 years of preparation for Ari Miklat to be ready. So the answer is that there are 2 purposes for the mitzvah of Ari Miklat. One is the obvious, a refuge for the murderer by Shogeg. But secondly, it's to highlight Kedushat HaChayim, to highlight V'chai Behem, to highlight the importance of life and how we should value our lives, and of course to plug into Torah and HaKadosh Baruch Hu with our lives. So that already was part of the mitzvah, right? Because when you see that, there's Ari Miklat, we know that, life is important. Someone else's life is as important as my life, and I have to be careful. Okay, so let's see what Reb Chaim says. First, the pasuk, he quotes, Ari Miklat tiyena lechem, you should have these cities of refuge. V'neis sham rotzeach, the rotzeach, the murderer will run there and be safe. Maken nefesh b'shgaga, the person we're talking about, a rotzeach, maken nefesh b'shgaga, who killed somebody inadvertently. Chavat, says Rav Chaim, chavat hagalut l'rotzeach b'shgaga, the obligation for the murderer, B'Shogeg, to go into Golus, milvad shehi kapora, aside from the fact that, number one, it serves as an atonement for him, he's there for all his life, until the death of the current Kohen Gadol. V'hatzala mi goel adam. So number one, it's a kapora for him, an atonement. Number two, it's saving him from the Redeemer, the fellow who wants to kill him, the relative. Mehaveh gam onesh. But thirdly, it's a punishment. Obviously a punishment. I mean, he's out of society. You know, he's in you want to say a minimum security prison. If you ever visited someone in minimum security prison, I mean, you know, somebody pointed out to me that you know, there's a lot of complaints amongst the Palestinians that the way that the jail treatments, right? But in the Palestinian society, there's a tremendous effort purposefully to do crimes to get into Israeli prisons. Because once you get into Israeli prisons, you know, you've got 3 decent meals, you can go to school, and, right, this is, okay, so we can't get off what we're dealing with today, right? The Kadosh Baruch Hu should continue, make things better for all of us. So, but here, this, you know, it's an onesh, it's a punishment. Whatever you want to say, he's not in society, right? Umishum kach tzrichim gemar din lechiyuv galut. So that's kind of the end of the line for him. Amnam yesh להתבונן. We have to ask a simple question. Madua ha'ba'emet ne'anah sherotzeh. Why is he punished? V'halo harag b'shogeg. He killed somebody inadvertently. Uma tam gazra haTorah onesh al zeh. So why does the Torah say that he's punished? Why is there a punishment for this, right? Answer. V'habir b'zeh nira, and this is really, in a certain sense, a theme we're going to see through the parsha. It's a subconscious idea. There's something deep in our neshama that we have to spend our lives creating a sense of purpose and direction, not only in what we do, but in why we do it, and it should become second nature for us in our neshama and in our leiv. Ki mi sheba al yado retzicha b'shgaga. Someone who is confronted with a moment and of the act of killing someone inadvertently, hari behechrech yesh lo netia kolshehu lekach. You have to say, he says, that somewhere deep in his recesses, he is capable of doing such a thing, right? In other words, for some reason, he hasn't worked on understanding the crime, the chet, if you will, the inappropriateness, the no-no of murder, to the extent that even B'Shogeg is a terrible thing, right? It is a terrible thing. You're taking someone's life. Ki below zeh lo haya bo lidei retzicha af B'Shogeg, Reb Chaim says. If he obviously still has not removed that in the inner recesses of his heart, that understanding, and it's there, right? It's activated. Im sobavo min hashamayim she yachashel B'Shogeg, if through heaven, right, hashgacha, it is decreed that he's going to kill somebody B'Shogeg, harizu hochacha sheyesh lo netiya lechet. It's because somehow there is that it's not been removed yet from his neshama, the ability to do this, right? Up B'Shogeg, even B'Shogeg. Im sovu min hashamayim, right? Harizu hochacha sheyesh lo netiya lechet. Al kain dino begalut. Therefore, he goes to Golus. He goes into the Ira Miklat. Onesh al ota netiya daka l'ritzicha hashochenet benafsho. It is actually a punishment for the remaining undealt with problem of killing B'Shogeg that his neshama did not reject. This is a very, as I say, dakut kind of an idea, but this is what Reb Chaim says, and we're going to take it. We're going to move it into the general parsha from the next piece. This is, again, this is a form that we have not used regularly, and I want to share with you again a sefer called Noten Deya. Noten Deya is from Rabbi Yonasan David, who is the Rosh Yeshiva of Pachad Yitzchak in Yerushalayim. He's the son-in-law of Rav Hutner, whose Torah we have studied all over the years. A tremendous Talmud Chacham, Rabbi Yonasan. His wife, Rebbetzin Bruria David, Zichrono Livracha, was the dean of BJJ, which Beis Yaakov, which was the Harvard of Haredi seminaries in Yerushalayim. She herself had a doctorate from Hunter College from Columbia, Rav Hutner's only child. So Rav Yonason is a massive, wonderful Talmud Chacham, and here he goes into this idea that Rav Chaim actually, okay, so let's see. Vayiktzaf Moshe al Pekudei Achayil, moving to another item on the Parsha, that the Jews were commanded, Klal Yisrael was commanded to go to war against Midian. Midian did a horrendous thing to Am Yisrael, involved Am Yisrael in promiscuous activity with Neshei Midian. The Neshei Midian came and enticed them, and Pinchas, of course, was the hero of all of this. We spoke last week about Kanaut and defining Kanaut, which Pinchas did. He killed the Nasi of the Shevet, who was publicly desecrated HaKadosh Baruch Hu by having relations with the princes of Midian. And so we were commanded to go to war to destroy all of the Midianite who were involved in this, right? So, but now Moshe gets angry. And who's he angry at? He's angry al Pekudei Achayil. He's angry at the generals, the leaders, the Sarei Alafim, Sarei Meot, etc. Sarei Alafim, Sarei Meot. He says, Haboyim mitzava lemilchama. Vayomer Elazar HaKohen el Anshe HaTzava, Haboyim lemilchama. Zot chukat HaTorah asher tziva Hashem et Moshe. This is a chok that Moshe commanded. It will become clear in a minute. So here's Rashi. Vayomer Elazar HaKohen. Lefi shebo Moshe. So what was going on here? What was the punishment? What did he yell at? What did he yell at? He lost his cool with the leadership. Why? Because they allowed certain people to stay alive. The din was that they had to deal with was killing all those who were complicit in the sin, the terrible, horrendous Chilul Hashem. And they didn't. They saved certain people, they saved certain children, the children maybe they could have saved, but they saved certain animals, whatever they were supposed to do, they didn't do a complete job. And so Moshe was angry at them, right? So now Rashi says that Elazar, who was working together with Moshe on this, Elazar HaKohen, it spoke to those who, Zot chukat HaTorah asher tziva Hashem et Moshe. Rashi again, now let's see what Rashi says. Vayomer Elazar HaKohen. Lefi shebo Moshe lechlal. Why was Elazar the one to give it over? Moshe got angry, and he forgot what the din is for these people. There's a certain din, there's a certain judgment of the people who went against and did not complete what they were supposed to complete. So Moshe forgot what the din was for them, for these people, right? Elazar had to give it over, right? His student, Elazar, right? But why is that? Lefi shebo Moshe leklal kas. Moshe got angry. Bo lichlal ta'ut. Because he got angry, he erred. He made a mistake. And shenitalma mimenu halachot giulei nachrim. Now here's the strange connectedness to the Parsha. He didn't forget what the punishment has to be for these people. He forgot the very next thing that's in the Parsha. Immediately after this moment in the Parsha, the soldiers failed to do what they were supposed to do. Moshe gets angry at them. You should have killed everybody. Da, 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 da. And then the Torah goes on to discuss the laws of koshering kalim. Goes on to talk about how we kasher kalim. If our vessels, you have gold, silver, metal, whatever you have, how to kasher them, whether it's, and this is the origin of it, right? Because they had possessions from Midian. They had all the vessels, the utensils, the pots, the pans from Midian. So here we have the introduction of hechsher kalim, hagalah, boiling, right? Burning out, and also tfilat kalim, also the mitzvah of putting kalim in the mikveh to purify them, right? So here he says, "Lefisha bo Moshe lechal kas bo lechal." He made him, and Moshe forgot the din of how we cleanse and purify the kalim from Midyan. So Elazar had to take over, and he gave it over. He forgot. Moshe forgot the laws of kashrus. I mean, imagine you call your rabbi with a shaila in kashrus, and if he's honest and tells you, "I forget the law," that's not a bad thing. That's a very impressive thing. If he says, "I have to get back to you," right? That's an honest rabbi, right? And it happens, You're asking a very good question. I'll get back to you. I have to look it up. I have to check it out, right? But we're talking about Moshe Rabbeinu here, right? And Moshe Rabbeinu, it was a kind of a punishment, right? We have to say, right, on a certain level, right? And he forgot the halachas. V'chein ata motzi, and there's two other episodes like this, which we're familiar with, right? V'chein ata motzi b'shmini l'miluyim. Going back to Vayikra, on the 8th day of the dedication of the Mishkan, Moshe forgot the halacha. Here you had the two brothers of Aaron who were surviving, of Aaron's children who were surviving. They died, right? And they had to do the avodah. They had to do the work in the Mishkan, and they were onanim. An onan is someone who is between death and burial of a relative. So, but here there was a dispensation. Kohen Gadol can continue the avodah even if he's an onan. But the regular Kohanim can't. But here there was a special dispensation that all these Kohanim, these two Kohanim, could continue to do the work. However, there were 3 korbanot that were given, 2 especially for the occasion of the dedication, but the other was a regular korban, which is very timely for us. It's going to be Rosh Chodesh on Shabbat. It was the korban of Rosh Chodesh. So Moshe said, all the korbanot, you're allowed to do everything, all the sacrifices, even the regular ones, right? Aaron took an umbrage, and Aaron had an argument, so to speak, with Moshe, and he explained to Moshe, and Moshe got angry, because he came in and he saw that they did not burn the korban of Rosh Chodesh. They did not eat, rather, the korban of Rosh Chodesh. They burnt it completely, right? So he took umbrage at this, and Aaron, without going into the details, there are too many details already, but Aaron explained to him, no, that the dispensation of the Kohanim to give sacrifices while they are in the state of onain is only for the special korbanot of the day, but the regular korban, the Rosh Chodesh korban, which is a monthly korban, that was okay. And Moshe acquiesced. He agreed, right? But he did get angry. Vayiksof al Elazar va'al Itamar ubolech al kas. He was angry with them. Why did you do this? Bolech al taut, and therefore he forgot the din. That was not the din. The din was the way they did it. The Rosh Chodesh korban had to go as, v'chein b'mashmo, in our third case, which we're all familiar with, shimu na hamorim. When he hit the rock, he said, shimu na hamorim, listen now, you rebellious people, speaking to Bnei Israel. V'yach et hasela, and he struck the rock. Al yedei hakas, so again, through anger, he made a terrible mistake, and he forgot the din. So you have all 3 cases of anger, and anger is related to forgetfulness of Torah, right? I just want to interject here. There's a sefer called Shari Aaron, an excellent sefer written by a Talmud Chacham from Bnei Brak on all the Chamisha Chumshei Torah, and he deals with a lot of Rashi Rishonim, and he brings in there 26. What was the chet of Moshe by hitting the rock, right? What was the chet? So we're so familiar with some of them, right? We've talked about it, but he brings I think 26 explanations of different misfortune of what Moshe did wrong. It's like the rabbi, the board of shul is talking about renewing the rabbi's contract. So there's everybody's got a different thing to say, right? So Moshe Rabbeinu goes back to Moshe Rabbeinu, right? 26 things. I want to share with you one of them, right? It's a kind of an interjection here, and it was a comment of the Chassam Sofer, which was not published until later. In the 1980s, they found a manuscript of the Chassam Sofer, and he said in there, this is an amazing, I just don't want to pass this by, it came to my mind now. What was his sin? So what did Moshe say? Shimu na hamorim. How do you translate that? Listen, na, what's na? Na. Please. Well, please. No, please. Please, na. Hamorim. What's hamorim? You rebellious people. So says the Chassam Sofer, you know what his sin was? He gave over mixed signals. Make up your mind. If you're punishing a child, if it's a no, it's a no. Hamorim. If you're praising the child, it's na. Right? Mixed signals, right? Mixed signals are not a healthy thing, right? Mother takes one position, father takes another position, right? So this, according to Chassam Sofer, was his misstep, okay? I just wanted to share that with you. It's a beautiful idea, okay? But now let's get back to the ranch. You've got 3 missteps of Moshe Rabbeinu where he actually forgot a halacha, and it was because of his anger, right? So in the next paragraph he asked, Tzarech litbonen, ma shaychut ben ma shekas leben ma dinit almu mimeno halachot. What's the relationship? What's the nexus between that anger and forgetting halacha, right? Why is that? What's going on here? Now he says, "De bevadai ein ze mikra." This is not happenstance, not by accident. Madanit almu hilchot geule akum. Back to our parsha, that he forgot the dinim of purifying the kelim that come from non-Jews, right? Dafka. That's what he forgot. Those are the dinim he forgot. Why? V'yesh la'avina shaychut b'chol zeh. What's the relationship between his anger and forgetting the laws of cleansing, purifying vessels, right? So you hear it coming, right? Hine, Isa b'Gemara, the Gemara says, Shalu Talmidav, first of all, at Rabbi Zera, they asked Rabbi Zera, this is a Gemara in Tainus Daf Chav, he asked Rabbi Zera, Amr lo Rav Ada bar Ava, they asked the rabbi, B'meha rachta yamim, what do you attribute your longevity to, right? Amr lahem, he said to them, right? Didn't say, I never smoked, right? I never had red meat, right? Miyamai lo hikparati b'toch beiti. I never got angry. I never lost my cool b'toch beiti, in my house. Now that's a very strange statement. V'tzarech l'dat b'toch beiti ein apshat rak kepshuto b'toch beito. It doesn't mean only in his house he didn't get angry. Shel adam. That doesn't mean, for that you don't get along, he doesn't get angry in his house, but he goes in the street and he starts yelling and cursing at people, right? Ella, we had a Jew came into shul this morning, into the 630 minyan, and he wanted to collect, which, listen, I have a policy. Anybody who sticks his hand out, you give him, he obviously needs it. He came in and he asked me, can I speak now? This is my Sukkot Zimra. So I said, no, we don't, Malosim. I said, Masha Bikashta. We don't do it. Okay. Looked at me. Then he started to go around to every single person sitting there, davening, and it was going on and on and on. He started speaking before Kriyas Torah. They stopped him. It was a disaster. And he would have done very nicely because the people are very generous. They constantly, in fact, there are 2 ladies that sit outside the shul every morning, and they've even brought them chairs, the Balabatim. And every morning, nobody asks questions, right? And one of the ladies had an operation this week. She'd have refuah shlema. She was telling us last week she's not going to be here for a week, right? She's not going to be here for a week. She wasn't looking for a Mishnah Baruch. She was looking for exactly. So in any case, what do you mean, Tok Beito, he didn't lose his cool, right? That can't be. That's not what it means. But Tok Beito means something else, says Rabbi Yonason. He says, Yesh b'zeh od b'china. It's another concept here. You've got to look at B'toch Beito in a more poetic way that the Torah can speak, that Chazal speak, right? De'inyano shel bayit hu makom pnimi b'chay adam. One's home, my heart, right? Home and hearth, right? He's talking about in himself, in his persona, that he never lost his cool b'toch beiti. He developed in himself that anger was simply not part of his persona. Hu makom pnimi b'chay adam. V'hakavana kan is, so understanding here, the kimuvan. Yesh pa'amim, there are times, v'hiz damaniyut, shemechayav adam leitnaheg b'hanagat kas. There are times that a person has to act with anger, and better act out angrily, right? Kamo av lebeno, rav letalmido, right? A father to his son, right? A rav to his student, right? I mean, this is from older Talmidim of Rav Soloveitchik, will tell you that in his shir, if somebody said something asked a question that made no sense, he made it clear that it made no sense to him, right? So in his later years, he got a little bit, but there's a purpose for it. There's a whole tshuva from the Chavos Yar. There are many places in Shas where you see this, and there's a tshuva from one of the great Achronim, the Chavos Yar, or Yoel Bachrach, who incidentally, I think that if I'm aging myself, but there's a musician, right? There was a musician named Bachrach, right? Bert Bachrach. So I understand he was a direct descendant of this particular rabbi, right? Okay, we're talking about 300 years back, right? In any case, right? That's okay, right? To get angry at a child, you have to discipline a child, but it's acting out. It can't be real anger, right? Aval mikom makom. Melamdim otanu Chazal, the rabbis teach us, sheyesh lahakpi shehakasya rak klapi chutz. It should only be external. The kas shouldn't be anger. In your heart, you should be able to switch it off, right? Aval b'pnimiut nafsho, ein makom lamarat hakas klal. Okay, he's giving the example of the anger that he had to Aaron's sons, and now so now over the page. Ukemo yesh lekapara zu milamata, hakpada zu lamata. I can't read here. Just as we have to be careful with this. We have to work on these midot, right? In other words, where does this come from? The Rambam in Hilchot Deot tells us there's a mitzvah called V'alachta b'drachav. We have to walk in the ways of Hashem. Walking in the ways of Hashem, Mahu rachum, afatah rachum. God is merciful, you have to be merciful. He's loving, you have to be loving, right? And then he says the proper way in midot is derech habenoni, the middle road. The middle road. And the middle road normally is understood as the golden mean, right? To be in the middle. Not do this, but not do that, right? Can't be. That's not what the Rambam means, because we're imitating God. Sometimes God gets angry. Sometimes God's very angry. Sometimes God is extremely merciful and extremely loving. So it doesn't mean, I'm making a long story short. What it means is that you have to have the entire rainbow. To be in the middle means that I'm in the middle, I have the entire panorama. I've developed in myself, I've worked on myself, and I have the entire panorama of midot, from anger to gentility. And that if I have to call on my anger, I'll call on my anger, but it's not external, it's only external. It's not. That's what the derech beinoni means. Derech emtzai. The Rambam keeps using both of those terminologies. That's the pshat. It's not moderation, right? God is not. The Rebbe Shem is not a moderate kaviyach, right? He can be very angry. He can be very, very loving. So we have to draw on what's necessary, right? So, and you see, and he uses kas as an example, right? He says that if a person is an angry man, an angry person, he should do midot therapy on his anger and work on himself and go to the other extreme completely, and then go back to the middle. To read the words of the Rambam very, very carefully. And he said, Zehu derech beinoni. That's the middle of the road, right? That you have to bring it all back to the center. So here, and he wants to say here, same thing in Shemayim. Kodesh Baruch Hu works with us the same way. Kamo ken yesh hanhaga zu lemala. We have this from Kodesh Baruch Hu. Degam bizmanim shaKodesh Baruch Hu mitnaheg im Klal Yisrael b'hanhaga shel kas. There are times that Kodesh Baruch Hu deals with us with anger. Mikol makom tzarich ledat, but we have to know, debemet, ein ze ela hanaga klapi chutz. To know that Kodesh Baruch Hu loves us, right? Father doesn't punish his child because he hates him. He punishes him because he loves him, right? The same kaviyachol with Hashem. Aval bebate gavai HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, malei ava lechlal Yisrael, we just said it this morning, right? Habocher ba'amo Yisrael, right? Everything is ba'ava, right? So, here we go. That's what was wrong. Even he's going to say, on his level, Moshe Rabbeinu. בזה יש להבין שהתפייה על מה שקצף משה רבנו הייתה על כך שכעס שלו לא היה רק כלפי חוץ. So the reason why Moshe was punished is because his anger was not only external, even Moshe Rabbeinu, אלא היה אף כעס פנימי. There was still inside of him some כעס, right? משום הכי נתעלמו ממנו הלכות גאולה. So why? What's the nexus? So why did he forget after this? Questions afterwards, because we're being videoed, okay? So what's the nexus? That because he was angry, he forgot the laws of kashering kalim. It's very simple. We can figure it out ourselves, right? The yesod halachot elu. What's the basis, the underpinning basis of these halachot? Huda davar nivla bepnimiyut hachefetz v'lo nimtza b'chutz. You've got a treif dish, right? What's treif about it? You use palmolive liquid. You put it in your dishwasher, right? With 2 cycles, right? A cold cycle and a hot cycle. It's shining. The dish is shining because the treif, we'll just use the colloquial word, the tarfus, the tumah, or whatever's inside is inside the dish. You don't see it. What's the problem? It's clean. What do I have to do? What do I have to take it to the mikveh for? Right? Right? He says it's not nimtza b'chutz. It's internal. The whole problem, the whole issue of kashering kalim is not external. It's internal. It's an internal thing on the vessel, right? So here the misstep of Moshe Rabbeinu, if we can say such a thing, we have to go very delicately, right, on however we understand it, to whatever extent, but it was an internal thing, right? And because he lost it internally, right, he forgot the laws of kashrut, which is internal, purging from ourselves of internal impurity. Afal pikein nesar. They're asur. They're forbidden, these vessels. Kamokein haita atzvi al Moshe Rabbeinu. Bamesh akas alo nishar b'chutz elahaya b'vate gavai. As we said, it was outside. It didn't remain as outside anger, external only. It was everything. And he puts parenthetically kimuvan. We have to understand shemidubar b'tviya daka min hadaka. Whatever it was with Moshe Rabbeinu is a minuscule. Right? Shirak Moshe Rabbeinu b'dargato agdola. Moshe Rabbeinu on his level, nitva al zeh, was caught on it. Right? Whatever that is. But that's the way we understand it. That's the nexus. That's the connection. Now he goes on to another area in the parsha. We'll see this theme. Right? So b'hemshech kav zeh yesh lahavin hakdama leparsha zu. Let's go to the beginning of the parsha. The mitzvah of neder. We are forbidden to make nedarim, to make vows. Making a vow is a very dangerous thing. Because first of all, you're saying the 613 mitzvahs are not enough. I'm going to make a neder, right, to do something else. In a sense, halachically, you have added a 614th mitzvah. And you are responsible for that if you go against it. It's a very serious, significant crime, right? So let's talk about that. Hataras nadar. And there's really what the mitzvah here is canceling vows, right? There are 2 ways of vows to be canceled. For we go to a Beit Din, and that's called Hatarat Nadarim, and we know that Erev Rosh Hashanah, that's what we do. And we have Hafarat Nadarim, that let's say a father can nullify, can get rid of mefir, a vow from a daughter, or if she's not if she's engaged or married, her husband can do the same thing. So it can make the vow as it's gone, right? The vow is gone, right? So you don't have to worry about it. And in fact, we take that very seriously. We're very careful about not making the Dorim. And if you think that you're really not, you are. Because we don't talk about, we never heard people walking around, I'm going to make a neder now. But I do hear many people saying, beli neder, right? You know, we might not understand what, but it's in our panimiyut. It's in our, to beli neder. We don't want to make a vow, right? Because there's a danger with making a vow. Beli neder, right? Dehine yesh lehitbonen al echad me'achidushim nit parsha. Fantastic example he's bringing from Rashi on how we nullify a vow, right? V'im heini avia ata b'yom shama'o al nidra v'aseres asher asra al nafsha. I'm going to go quickly, go a little late, but I'll explain everything. Lo yakum Hashem v'yislach la. She's forgiven ki heini aviota. This is a case, Rashi explains, Pirush Rashi, so. What are we talking about? We're talking about a girl, a young lady, who made a vow to become a Nazir. Now, that's pretty serious stuff. That means she can't drink wine. She has to let her hair grow. Maybe for a lady, that's okay, right, to be a Nazir. She wants long hair, but she can't come in contact with Misa, with a dead body, right? And she did it. She wants to do it. I'm going to do this. I want to become, let's say, more holy. I want to try to be closer to Hashem, right? There is a law of Nazir. So I'm plugging into Nazir. And her father hears about it, and he cancels it. She doesn't have to be there. He hears about it. No, I can't do this. I know she's going to get into trouble for this, right? 2 hours later, what happens? She accidentally picks up a cup of wine. She's at a kiddush, an engagement party, whatever it is, and somebody gives her a little wine, makes a l'chaim, and she drinks the wine. She says, "Oh, what did I do? Right? I'm finished now, right?" B'me'akat, that's what it's talking about, right? So I'm just going to skip through to give it to you inside. Zuhi tzricha slicha. Now, she didn't do anything wrong, right? The father canceled, right? But she has to do slicha. The Torah says she has to do slicha. Af al pi shehu mufar, even though the vow is canceled. V'im mufarim tzrichim slicha, and the Gemara concludes when it talks about this. Rabbi Akiva says, imagine a person who does a sin inadvertently. He doesn't really do the sin, right? And he has to do tshuva. All the more so, the rest of us who do sins not inadvertently, right? So, but what's the slicha here? What is she asking for forgiveness for? She has to do forgiveness, right? That's the halacha. It's the din, and it's the pasuk in the Torah, right? Here, what you can answer the question, right? Hine, he avera ma'od daka. This is a very the avera is like very, very limited b'machshava. Sof. There was no mais avera. There was really no mais avera. I'm skipping because we're getting late here. So, machshavato yachol lechadesh yisur afal pisha zeh eino chefza the isura be'etzem hakol chlasot. Right. In other words, a person has the ability, as we said before, to add something to the Torah, so to speak. Right. But here I want it to become something special. Right. But betoch tocho shel adam apnimiyut shelo. If in the essence of the bottom of that page, a person has the power that they can add something to their neshama. But if the neshama is not ready for it, right, you have to be ready for it. And if you're not ready for it, it's not going to happen. And this is what happened here. She wasn't ready for it. She made externally a vow that she's going to be a Nazir, but internally she on her level of spirituality, which was obviously a great level that she wanted to do this, but on her level of spirituality, she was not ready to do this. And since she wasn't ready to do it, it happened. She did something to counter her Nazirut, right? It was internal. Again, we're dealing with a kind of subconscious, internal, toch pnimiyut, the persona. The entire persona has to change. And if the entire persona has not been totally corrected, you'll do something b'shogeg. That's the point he's making. Okay? And that's why now. V'hainu the Torah shebichtov. So he says here in the second paragraph on the last page, on the left. V'hainu the Torah shebichtov hi hametziut hanimtzeit. So there's a reality. I'm not going to go through the whole paragraph. I'm going to go to the Vav we're going to do. Vav will do. But there's a reality of the neder. There's a reality that I have to deal with. That's Torah Shebichtav. And the beyond the reality is Torah Shebal Peh, of the power of the oral Torah that can remove even something like Nazirus, okay? But I want to, so you get the idea here. We get the idea from Reb Chaim when he spoke about the Moshe Rabbeinu's kas. We have Moshe Rabbeinu's kas, which is anger, and it led to his forgetting the halachas of Hagolas Kalim. It was internal, and that's the kashrus of Kalim. And Nidorim, here, this Maasei that we gave with Nidorim is also internal. And Arei Miklat, right, it's a sin because he killed somebody, but internally there was something, right? Now, last piece, Vav, and this is the icing on the cake, right? V'yesh lahatim b'mitikut. I want to add here a PS with sweetness. Ulevaer ma de tchilat Yom HaKippurim hu b'tfilat kol nidrei. Right? Age-old question. Why do we start Yom Adin, Yom Kippur, Yom Slicha, the day, this is it, the holiest day of the year, but we start with kol nidrei. We nullify our vows. What's that all about, right? Tfilas kol nidrei. The be'etzem yesh li shol al metziut the tshuva gufo. What is tshuva actually? Before we answer the question, what is tshuva? The adam how is it possible a person can sin and he goes to the Rabbi and says, I'm sorry, and he can be forgiven? Now, there's a caveat, ben adam l'chavero, you have to ask the person as well, and it's just not done. But I go to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and I say I did something wrong, please forgive me, right? That's tshuva, right? That's tshuva. It's kind of, it's abstract. It's not in the world of reality. Tshuva is a mitzvah that is beyond reality, right? Hu dekol maasei yeshlo eze makom desham yeshlo chalot. Because when you do something, there's a chalot. There's a reality in this world, what we do. You rob a bank. So you've robbed the bank, you have the money, that's the chalot. Aval al yedei tshuva, real tshuva, hadam nichnas lemekom ulolam pnimi. In order to do tshuva, you don't just have to revisit the bank robbery, the chalot, the reality of what you did. You have to revisit yourself, your heart, your neshama, the source of this. Why did I do this? What's in me that I did such a thing? I've got to purge myself. I've got to kasher my kalim, my neshama and my heart. That's what I have to do. There's something wrong with me. I covet something that doesn't belong to me. I don't have self-respect that I should earn a living myself, right? That's tshuva. That's tshuva, right? That I confront myself, not just the maaseh, the external reality of what I did, but what was behind it, my persona, and I correct that persona. That's tshuva. Ubebechina pnimitzu, through this internal thing, minutak mato maaseh avera sha'asa. That is related to the actual thing that he did. V'inyan hazeh hu kemoshe katvu she'elat chacham shehu megaleh malkum. That's what, when you go to the rabbi, when you go to the Beit Din to annul vows, they say to you, when you made the vow, how do you annul a vow? They don't just say abracadabra, right? No more vow, right? That's not. Was there something? Would you have done this thing if your mother knew about it? No, I would never do it. Okay, that's a petach. Then you would not have done it. It's not a vow, right? So you're already thinking about it, right? Internalizing it to be a better person. So that's mishum hachi hatchalat Yom HaKippurim hu betfilat kol nidrei. That is why Yom Kippur starts with kol nidrei, to confront ourselves, to cancel our vows, right? What did we, all of our missteps during the year, we have spending 25 hours now to look inside of ourselves and see where we went wrong and try to correct that. And I know that it's me, Ribono Shalom, right? I don't make excuses. Please forgive me. That's why Kol Nidrei is at the beginning of Yom Kippur. Okay, thank you all very much.